Good.
Fine.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Oh, hello.
We are live. I'm just going to share this.
Awesome.
Great. Well, welcome everybody. A very big welcome to, my pleasure today to be chatting with Robby and Vesna Petrov, and they've done. They're in our WOW community, but also friends, and they're in Sydney. How's Sydney today?
Yeah, it's lovely. It's really warm. It's gorgeous. Yeah, the weather's
Awesome.
lovely. Yeah.
Awesome, because we wouldn't know with your background, of course, and of course I'm in Melbourne, so and it's nice and cool. We had a whiff of summer go by, and it's nice and cool again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been listening to lots of some really interesting interviews by you, interviewing other people, and as my daughter Beck Howell and I, in listening and that, our response was like, she suggested at first that what about we interview you? You're so interesting. And I thought, yes, can I please do it? So I'm hogging this one with great pleasure. So just before we just by way of introduction, I first came across you, first heard about you through Beck. I believe you came into the WOW community, the community itself, through Beck's coach group, and then I met you in Perth. We had a conference over there, WOW conference, with at the same time as Ironman that WOW and a whole big group from WOW, including Beck, did, and it was really, really good meeting you, in just as human beings, and I just saw, this couple, and I've seen since, this couple who are very, self-motivated, lots of initiative, and it's like the impression I get, I just thought, what could I say? It's actually your actions speak louder than your words. Now, I don't know if your kids would always say that, but like maybe words are sometimes loud. I don't know. Maybe they are. But to us, that's what it always looks like, and it's awesome. So would you, first of all, now I've got a bunch of questions, but we're going to really be talking about marriage, family, your marriage, which I'm going to we'll go into a little bit, but marriage, family, and faith. Like, sometimes they don't mix that very well when it really comes down to telling the truth. Yeah. Sometimes it's like marriage or faith or marriage, whichever. But so would you just give us a little overview of who you are, rough background, children, major influences, just really condensed, but so we know a little bit who you are. What brings you to this point?
Yeah. Okay. So, we've been together. We've been married for 19 years, together for 25, which sounds like a long time because it is. And we have 3 beautiful children. So 15, 13, and 11. We're going through the teenage years, which is very interesting. We're loving it. But it's interesting. So we are pastors of a church. We're pastors at WOWLife Sydney. We were also pastors prior to WOWLife, at an amazing community, amazing church. But in 2019, really felt this thing happening within us where we needed to start a transition, where essentially we basically got rid of all our belongings, put them out, and started this journey of following what we believed was God speaking to us.
We became gypsies.
We became gypsies because we were like gypsies at heart. And that's been the journey since 2019. It's been this slow progression of us coming back into Sydney, starting this beautiful community, along with, others around Australia with WOWLife Australia. So
awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, that's great. So we'll tease out all of some of all of that. That's cool. So there is a term that's spoken about in WOW, and I'd never heard of it before, and it's having a mystical marriage. Now, antennae might just go up, and it's like, Christians, mystical, what is this? Is like Eastern religion? Are you into New Age? You slippy, what is mystical marriage? What and you know, like you've applied that word to yourself. Well, others have anyway. I don't know. I've heard it in relation to you. What is a mystical marriage?
Look, I reckon it's not very difficult to explain. A mystical marriage is just simply a deep marriage, just like a mystic is someone who really goes deep into the things of God, you know, deep into heavenly things, deep into their relationship with the Creator, you know, as what I believe a mystic is. So as that refers to a marriage, if you look at that in a marriage sense, it's just going deep in every aspect of our relationship between a man and a woman being married, spirit, soul, and body. So that's pretty, yeah, I would say it's pretty simple. Might sound, sometimes the word mystical might sound a little bit, I don't know.
You can get quite, sometimes in mystical circles, what can happen, things get quite wordy and things get quite heady, you know, but as we've been learning, you know, with WOW, is that we want the up, but we also want the down, down. So essentially, you know, we're very, Robby and I, believe it or not, people that know us, we're quite practical, you know, even though we might, you know, we love the spiritual and we love to explore the spiritual world. We're actually very practical in our approach to marriage, in our approach to parenting and community, because we have to be, you know, and so, yeah, you know, a mystical marriage is actually, it's very practical. You know, I heard someone say once in an interview, I won't say who, I won't bring them into this interview, but, you know, he was saying that when he got married, his wife actually said to him, you know, because he's a very spiritual person and loved to pray and spend time with God and all these, and his wife said, actually, I married a human being. I didn't marry a spirit. Like, can you actually become present, you know? So that's the whole thing. It's how do you hold in tension our spirituality, but then also our physical needs, you know, and marry them together. We actually haven't done Kirby and Fiona's mystical marriage course. We're wanting to. So, yeah.
It's been on the list of things to do for over a year now, maybe or more.
Yeah.
Well, that's very cool that I've sort of, that we've got this association of you as a couple to mystical marriage, and you haven't even done the course. So it's a description, it's not a qualification.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a relationship, a marriage, I believe, you know, that God just wants to bless us with, because he wants us to have the full enrichment of this marriage, this relationship, you know, and it's, I guess it's the original intention, I believe, of God's purpose for marriage. You know, it's going, yeah, it's going into the deepest, most the deepest, innermost parts of us, just as a true mystic does with God. You know, you go into the mysteries, the deepest parts, you know, and as you go deeper, things get revealed.
Yeah, that sounds very risky for an individual to release yourself, to blend yourself, fuse yourself with somebody to that extent. It sounds quite risky, you know, like the words that might pop up for a lot of people are rights, defense, feelings of defense and all that. So was it always like that for you, or like this mystical marriage, what you have experienced in your marriage, as a marriage, was it always like that, or was there a time before where it was quite different? This is an open question, not a leading question, because I don't know.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't always like that.
Okay.
No, well, I guess, do you mean our relationship before? I'll tell you what, our relationship before we got married, right, was
we were together before we were sons. Like, before we received Christ, we were together for 3 years. So
yeah, and in those 3 years that we were together, without having God in our life, You know, it was a real messy type of relationship, you know, and so
on again, it was on again, off again.
Yeah.
It was very drug induced, no emotional intelligence. But in a sense, it was mystical still, because we no, actually, no, I won't go there.
But
So I was going to go to no.
we're wondering how much to share in this. But anyway, but look,
You had
look, I'll tell you what, those 3 years, you know, as messy as they were, I guess God had a plan for us. He knew that we were to be together, you know, and so what happened was you know, we got saved. Like, you know, we came into a relationship with Jesus, right? First myself, and then not long after Vess, and then what happened was, I guess we started to actually, I think God opened up our eyes to see one another for who we are, and we started to fall in love with one another for the first time. And so what happened was, in this time, during this time, because what happened was that there was 3 years before we knew God, and then there was 3 years after we knew God, before we got married. So we were sort of together for 6-year period. But the 3 years after once we came to know God and had Him in our life, what happened was that I guess look, first and foremost, I know what happened was he spoke to us clearly that we were to be together. So he confirmed, and he literally made it clear that Vess and I were to be married. Like, it was a confirmation, you know, and so we knew that we were supposed to be together, you know. And I think what it came down to was our hearts for God, because I know, you know, I remember that it was one morning and I was just about to go to work, and I remember I was just having my coffee. I was sitting at the kitchen table, and I remember I just said to God, I said, Lord, I will look. You know my heart. You know that the desire of my heart is to have a wife and a family. And I mean, I was young then, you know, I was maybe in my early 20s, you know, and that's the desire of most men's heart at that age, you know. And I said, but you know what? I said, I just want to let you know that I love you more than anything in this whole world. And I want to let you know now that I lay down this desire and I give it up, and even if I never ever get married, I want to let you know that you are my everything, and every desire of my heart you fulfill, you know. And as I laid it down, literally I heard him speak to me like it's clear as a bell, you know. He said stop looking, something like, stop looking for the one, stop looking for the one that you, I can't remember the words now, but it was something like, stop looking, you found the one that you were looking for. And I just knew right there and then, because Vess and I were together at that time. We were like boyfriend and girlfriend, you know, and we just didn't know what was happening between us. I just wanted to know God's will. And he made it clear right there and then. And from that moment, I just knew, and I shared this with Vess at that time, you know, we were very like, you know, I don't think Vess had not even begun a relationship with God at this time, literally. But 6 months later, she did. But I'll tell you what happened from that moment on. The moment we realized that this was God's will for our life, and that our hearts were for God, and that's all we wanted, everything just started to fall into place. We realized that our relationship just started becoming just sweeter, and we decided that we were going to get married. We said, okay, you know, I proposed to her, and then about a year later we got married. And then this was a 3-year period. But I'll tell you what.
And going back to the going back to your question about trust, like how do you actually trust somebody to be able to open up in order to go deeper together in every aspect? You know, what this was one thing, like what Robby was talking about when he was at that time in his life where he was questioning, you know, are we meant, and so was I, like, are we meant to be together? You know, are we meant to go deeper in our relationship? Because we'd already been together for 3 years. It was messy. It was on again, off again, you know. You know, and then he started pursuing God, and he came into a relationship with the Creator, you know. And then so during this conversation that he was saying that he had, we were kind of on the cusp of, oh, do we continue this relationship or do we end it, you know? And and so when he had this encounter with God, right, when I remember when I came to see him, when he came downstairs where he was living and he opened the door, like when I looked at him, his whole countenance had changed. Like his face was different. His eyes were different. Like I could see the physical change in him through his encounter with God, literally. And that is what brought the trust in me to go, oh, hang on, this guy seems so different right now. Like I can physically see the difference. It was literally like glowing. Well, I thought it was anyway.
I was like Moses.
But anyway, so that's what like.
I wish. Yeah, right.
You wish.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what brought that trust, you know, because you actually have to see, like, you have to see that the other person is actually willing to, you know, basically give up their life for you, you know. And
but this sort of helped Bess. I mean, maybe this was a part of your journey to start pursuing God more.
Yeah, because I wasn't saved at this stage. I was like, who's this crazy guy that's telling me like that he's got to...
Because she knew me beforehand, and she started to see a transformation in me once I started a relationship with God, you know.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
so I used to tell her about Jesus, and she'll be like, no, I don't want to hear about you. I don't, you know, like. But then what happened was that she literally, I guess God was just speaking to her and drawing her nearer to him. And this is
amazing. It's such an amazing journey.
And this is the beauty of you know, of the mystical marriage. I guess it all revolves around God. That's you know, that's the I guess the center point.
I think you're saying in the fusion of, you said before, Vesna said before, the up, which is that heavenly realm, that unseen, you know, the you know, what the heavenly realm, however we describe that, and the earthly, you know, our lives on earth, and that. So so in just coming off that there, what you've said in practical terms, if you can just for a couple of minutes slightly tease out, what do you mean? So when you have a mystical marriage, a kingdom approach or a kingdom mindset in your marriage and parenting, like going from the first realization to actually living it out, what do you mean by you know, having, how do you have a kingdom approach and kingdom mindset in your marriage and parenting?
Yeah, look, I think everything we do comes out of a relationship with God, our own individual relationships with God, right? Because see, what we've realized is that over the years is that the more our relationship with God, our own individual relationships with God become stronger, our marriage becomes stronger. And so we focus on loving our Creator. You know, we're all part of the ministry of reconciliation, which is the Creator and the created coming into full reconciliation as one. And so and from the moment we got married, we always used to say, I remember we used to have a little motto, and we always used to say, you know, nothing's ever going to separate us because God is our glue. And that's what we've always trusted in, because, you know, have you ever, like, you know, had super glue or some kind of glue or whatever it is, And it depends on the type of glue. You got a different sort of trust. You know what I mean? It's like, oh my gosh, is this glue going to do it? Is it? But when you trust in God as the glue to keep you together, you know that trust in God will continue to keep you together for your whole lives together. And I tell you what, we just realized that that's what it's all about. The more we focused on our relationship with God, then we'd come together, and instead of being codependent on one another, we realized that codependency there's only one codependency that we have, and that is with our Creator. You know, that we're only supposed to be dependent on our God, our Creator. And so once we receive, we come into this relationship to give, not just to it's kind of like, yeah, it's flipping it around. There's so many relationships and marriage that it's all about, I'm just here because I want this or I want that, and it's all about want, and receive, and receive. But when you flip that around, and it was a journey, it didn't happen straight away.
It takes a lot of dying to yourself.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of
I'm going to push you a little. Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to push you a little bit on this, because what about how does this all work its way out in, now some of this will be to do with your personality, but I'm thinking at a deeper level, well, just as people, how does this work its way out in the daily conflicts, or the daily or bigger conflicts in your relationship, and then as parents? Like that can, and that's often tied to expectations, like I expect you to be doing more certain kinds of things than me. I expect, and why don't you go and tend to the kids? What do I have to do? Like how does that outwork its way? Because I know I haven't seen you in the imperfect moments, but I know you're not perfect. So how do you?
Well, that's true.
You've still got skin on, so
that's right.
You're not perfect yet.
Yeah.
We're far from perfect, that's for sure.
But how do you do this? How do you interpret those, those inner frustrations, conflicts, expectations, to having a good, doing things the kingdom way, and outworking a mystical marriage and family? Yeah.
I think one thing that we done very early on, especially when the kids were little, I remember, like, that whole, they're newborns, you've got a toddler, and it's all this, you're in that space. And I remember, like, we're just sitting there, and it was very exhausting. And I said to Robby, like, the Bible says that know the season that you are in, and a wise son you will be. And I said to Robby, you just have to accept the season that we're in right now. Like, this is a season that we're in, and we need to work with the season that we're in. So something that we constantly do, Liz, is we stop, like when things start getting too much, right? Like, when things start getting hectic, like we stop and we reevaluate, like, what are we doing? Like, is what we're doing still working? Are we doing too much? What do we need to let go of to make the flow a little bit easier in our family, So for us, that's something that we constantly do. Like when things start getting full on, we actually stop and we reevaluate what we're doing, and what do we need to stop doing, or what do we need to start doing, because things are constantly changing. The kids, honestly, kids change every 6 months. Their needs, their personality, because they're growing. Us as people are constantly changing. So one thing that we actually stop and reevaluate, we're very free range in the way we do things with our children. Okay, we give a lot of space for them to be them, and even in our marriage, we've learned to do this as well. We've learned to go, okay, we're one, but we're two as well. And I think sometimes that can be the misconception in Christian circles. It's like, oh, we're one, and then, yeah, but what does that actually one mean? So. And I think that's where a lot of conflict happens in marriage. It's like, well, we're one, but you're actually two, and you need to honor one another as human beings, and, one another's callings. We need to honor one another's gifts and whatnot, and be there for one another, So they're things, I think when we get that right, like when we understand that we're all individuals in this family, we're not codependent. I'm not here to tell you what to do. You are a grown person, you get to choose your life, and then instill that into the children. You kind of create this space where you're not having to control and manipulate every single outcome, and that's something that, like, we've done as a family, and really that's who our Father is. That's who the Creator is. He doesn't stand over us and tell us what to do. He gives us the freedom. So I think the sooner you can give your children the freedom to govern their own life with the boundaries that they need at that, at certain ages, the better the family unit will function,
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's really cool. So going through all of this, marriage, family, we don't do it alone, or it's much more difficult, and it's there's more minefields if you're trying to do it alone. So I'm guessing you've had I know you've got mentors and you've had mentors. So what do you look for? Like what do you look for and see in someone when you that you go and say, that's our mentor, this in this particular area or overall? What is it you look for?
Look, I'll tell you what we look for.
You go.
We look for God's voice to lead us, because God knows who we need to come and sit under, and I know that you're definitely right there, Liz. Like, to have mentors, people that can display a marriage is so important. Like, I know one, to begin with, Vessa's parents are just a beautiful example of a marriage as well, which is such a beautiful thing. And this is something that, I guess that would be probably the earliest sort of glimpse, maybe for us. But then also God led us to a church community, which was GGC Life Church, to come and sit under Leo and Christine Nicotra, right? These guys, they literally for maybe close to 20 years were an example, and it was all by example. They never sat us down and said, okay, this is what you do, you know what I mean? Like, or sometimes they did when we had to ask them tough questions, and we used to do that, we used to do that. But whatever they carried, whatever they had, we caught that, and it was such a beautiful thing. And I know that, even now in this time where God has called us to come and sit under Kirby and Fiona, what they have as well, we are coming under, and we're not in the same relationship that we were with Leo and Chris. We're not part of in the same, local church, but what we're realizing is what they have. There is this flow that comes as you submit your heart to them, and there's a flow, an effect. And people like Arrow and Chanel over in Perth, when we sit down and chat with them and talk, like, whatever they've got as well, literally we catch these things, like the people that God has put us under to submit to, whatever they have literally just flows through us. And so I would say that's the number one thing we look for, is to hear the voice of God for where he wants us to go, who he wants us to sit under. I think that would be the number one thing. We don't look at any other thing, like, it's just God, you lead us and show us.
It's the divine alignment. Like, that's all we want, and, sometimes, and another thing that's important is when God calls us somewhere or calls us to a people group, like in relationship, like everything that we do through a relationship, where we love online, it's beautiful, but it's something that in this era we're doing is something that's very important to us, is relationship, because that is ultimately where transformation happens. But one thing sometimes when, say for example, we're talking about submission, when you're called to a community, those people might not even think like you. Like, they might have the most different approach to parenting than you do, like that was the case, like with our pastors at our previous church. Like, we were so different in our parenting styles, but like, that is not like what we measure things up against, like having people that think differently to you is actually one of the greatest strengths, that you can have in your life, so it's diversity in community, so, some, like, I would just say to people like that are listening is, where you're called, like, to that particular community, like that divine alignment, don't allow, differences of opinion to move you away from God's plan for your life, because ultimately God is into relationship, and where he puts us in community, no matter how diversely we think, like we're there to learn from those people, you know, for the time that we're there. So
yeah, that's great. Now, speaking of diversity, I'm going to make a very educated guess that your kids are diverse from you and from each other as well. Yeah, look at those eyes. Just whoa. So just in a little capsule, because I want to keep this tight, and we'll try and wrap up within 15 minutes, let's say. And there's still a couple more things that I wanted to explore. But with your children, thinking that diversity and them growing up through the different phases, and thinking of, parental wisdom and giving them space, can you put into a couple of sentences or paragraph what advice or lessons are you actively passing to your teenagers around relationships, or how do you do that? Like, how do you kind of instruct them? How do you mold them in the way that that the greater values that you have?
Okay.
Like, those boundaries but freedom.
Yes. Yeah.
And if it helps, you can actually even say, what about when things go terribly wrong in a bad direction? That may help you answer it as well. Do you have a strategy, a plan? How do you, what do you do?
Well, we're still okay. So we're
still trying to figure that out.
we're still learning in how to govern the teenage years, because it's very interesting years. But
it's pretty new for us. It's only sort of come up in the last year or two, maybe. Yeah.
But I think one thing that's I think very important to understand is that ultimately, and this is what we have to remember as parents, is ultimately those children belong to God. They're just a gift to us for a very short time, and you have children as well, so you know how quick this time goes, so for us, we always try to keep connection like the focal point. So say for example that there is an altercation with a teenager, right? There's an altercation in the home and they're not listening, they don't want to do what you're saying, they've got their own idea about what to do. We always look at things as in phases, because things don't last forever. Things don't last forever, and so what we're learning to do is go, okay, this thing that this child is going through is a phase, and ultimately my connection with this person is way more important than the outcome of this conversation. Right. So constantly keeping that connection the focal point, and it's not a matter of who's going to win the argument or who's going to win the battle. It's holding everything, we hold everything in such in balance, right. And allow them to be their own individual, without having to put our expectations on the children. Now obviously we live a very alternative lifestyle probably compared to most people, and we've grown up our children in a home that is very where they can be very autonomous, so we give our children a lot of choice. We were in a conversation with a friend recently about decisions we had made for our child, our teenager, that was he wanted independence in a certain area, and we were like, okay, what do we do with this, because we know that it can in the long run be damaging. But he said to us, Mum and Dad, I'm getting older now, can you trust me in this? Can you trust me to govern this area? He didn't use that language, but essentially to govern this area in the way that I want to. And Robby and I at first were oh no, that's a bit scary. What if he does this, this and this? And what if he, and we were no, we're going to trust him, and we're going to allow him to walk out his own individual expression. And that's essentially what we've done, and
to allow them to make their own mistakes, and not be afraid of them making these mistakes,
afraid,
because they can learn from these things, and not be so controlling, I guess, because we want them to learn, and I guess when you're so controlling, you sort of take that you rob them from learning quicker in life. I think, and so when you, I think it's just not having, and of course, it's depending on what that thing is. You're not going to, like a little, you're not going to allow, like a little toddler. You're not going to give a toddler a shotgun. You know what I mean? Here you go. Like, there's always, you have to be wise with the decision, with how much you entrust them with, or how much you let go and allow them to make mistakes. So of course that it comes with wisdom, in that respect. But I think it's just been a journey for us, hasn't it? Like with especially now them coming into the teenage years, they've seen a lot of us. It has been a journey. These last 4.5 years has been this incredible journey of transition for us that God has taken us on. And during these years, I really believe our kids have just naturally learnt so much in regards to how mummy and daddy have dealt with life, and the decisions we've made and how we've made these decisions. And, the fact that, we really, they know how much we trust God. They know how much we follow God. They know how much God is the center of our universe, and, we pray together. We do our best to, as often as we can, to sit down and eat together and just, when we're in the car, it's a perfect opportunity, to chat and to pray. And, we do a lot of long trips driving. And, I just think they learn a lot from all of these things just naturally. They just watch and, we really honor, we really honor the prophetic words that God speaks over our lives. Like we bring them up together. We say, hey, like let's remember what God has spoken over us. We come together, we pray together. It's just they see all this, and it literally speaks to them in so many ways. So we just bring we are. Yeah.
That's interesting, because I was going to ask, and I don't need to now, but when things go terribly wrong or in a bad direction, do you have a strategy or plan? And that you've kind of answered that. And I was thinking about, when communication goes bad, not falling into toxic. And I thought it's good to point out, to just make a distinction, that when we say something is toxic, it's not the thing that happened, Johnny going wrong, making one of those wrong choices he asked, because of course I'm using a fake name, obviously.
Yeah.
Johnny going, making the choice you didn't want him to make, for instance. But what's toxic, when the only time things become toxic is in the relationship, whether it's home, work, church, anywhere, isn't it? It's any toxicity is about the relationship. So I'm hearing you talk a lot about relationship, and very much the up and the down. I'm really enjoying that. And from the comments, I can also see there's those watching now are also enjoying that too. So, and I was going to ask you too, just very quickly, what would you, after listening to yourselves, each other, what would your kids say about that? What you just said? Would they say, that's pretty right, that's how mum and dad are? Or would they say, oh, what would they say?
I
reckon they'll do a bit of both. I reckon, because
it's good to hear.
Because it's always not fair. It's like, oh, no way, it's not fair. This is not fair, or that's not fair, right. And and then be like, no, it's not always the way that you guys, and that's how. Look, that's real life, isn't it? Like the way we are, like on the way we are, like in front of other people is. It's not going to be exactly 100% the same as we are when we're in our own home. That's what we want. We want to say, oh, look, the way that you see us, out in public is exactly the way that we are at home. I don't think so. I honestly don't know if anyone would.
We don't like to.
If anyone's like that, well, they're perfect. Well done. Congratulations. And I've got a lot. I literally got a lot to learn.
I think we want to be like, when it comes to parenting, when it comes to marriage or relationships, or even community, it's important to be real, and transparent, and because we're human beings, you know, and everyone's on a journey. So, you know, it's important just to see those parts of us.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And thank you for remaining real.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
We want to remain real, because I tell you what, one of the things we've noticed that doesn't help is when some people portray themselves as being perfect. Well, not perfect, but like so good, and their kids are so perfect and whatnot. And then you think, oh my gosh, we need to be at this standard with our kids, but it's like, oh my gosh, we fall short, you know. And we just want to be real with our life, because we want to help people succeed, you know. We want to help. We don't want to set them up to fail, because like when you just be real and truthful and be transparent, regardless of what anyone thinks, I think that's when you can really, really be helpful and useful for others.
And this is why local community is important, Liz, because, you know, with social media, you know, you just have to look at Instagram. Everything is perfect. You know, everyone's life is perfect in those squares. You know, everyone's dressed really nice. Everyone's got great parenting advice. But you know, we all know that, like, that's not really the reality, you know, and that's where things can become toxic, is that, like, when we're constantly like watching social media and like that's our standard, like especially with the younger generation, because that's all they know, you know. But then when you actually get involved in local community, like for us, you know, having homeschooled our children and have been part of community, like homeschool community, where you get to hang out with other parents and you get to do life together, that's when the transformation happens. It doesn't happen through like social media. It really doesn't. I love social media. I think it's awesome that we get to share on here. I mean, it's great. It's awesome, you know, but at the end of the day, like, you need real life, real people in order to bring the transformation in your life.
Yeah, that's really cool. So as I've got two questions, thank you for this. This is really cool. I've got two questions for you to wrap up, and then I'll leave you with something to close out with. For you to close out with. But so what are your goals as a couple? Like, do you have a goal? What do you dream of? And how do you reconcile this? Probably answered this before, but, you know, how do you reconcile this with your individual goals, temperaments and strengths? So whatever, but really, I guess what I'm really asking is, what's your goal? What's your dream? You have a fairly free range life, but you live in community. What's your goal? What's your dream? Do you have one?
We do. I think, like, okay, obviously, like, we love community. We love to build community. We love people. We love to build community, you know. But then at the same time, we also like love, we love summer, don't we?
Yeah.
We love summer. And honestly, like, the last few days I've been grieving the end of summer. It's like all of a sudden it's hit me, oh my gosh, winter's here. But I think for us, ultimately, is like chasing the endless summer, isn't it? Like, honestly, like, it is. It's chasing the endless summer. So, you know, whatever, like, that's going to entail for us, I think it's always going to, like, entail community. It's always going to entail family, you know. But well, that's my goal.
We've got a lot of, honestly, we've got a lot of dreams and desires that God's put on our hearts, you know. But I tell you what, our number one desire, our goal is to walk with the Lord. You know, it is to follow God. It is, honestly, we don't know what He's going to say for us to do, where He's going to say for us to live, what is going to get us to we got no idea. It's honestly, it's especially these last 4.5, 5 years, it's been this journey where we got no idea what's going to happen in our life the next day, let alone the next year, or, you know. And so and all we want to do, our goal, our desire is literally just to love our beautiful, beautiful God, you know, to walk with the Holy Spirit, you know, to love Him and to love others as we love ourselves. Like, that's it. There's nothing more important for us, you know. And I know as we do this, as we lay down our life, like, we got all these desires and things and whatnot, but as we lay them down, right, I know that, and we've seen this from experience, that He leads us into sometimes things or places or whatever it is that we don't really want, But as we do them, right, as we let them go and we follow him, we realize that our life is 10 times, if not 100 times better than what it would have been if we went and did what we wanted. And I think that would be our number one goal is literally just to follow God with where he leads us and what he calls us to do, what he calls us to say. We're just
like an example would be this, Liz. Like, you know, we led a school supernatural for 7 years, and we had goals, we had plans, like for the future, for years to come. We were filling up the diary for the following year, and then, you know, God spoke to us something else, you know, something that was not on our radar, you know, it was not in our plan, it was not. So essentially what Robby is saying is true. It's like, okay, you know, we hold everything that we're doing, we hold loosely with open palms, like nothing belongs, like we've so detached ourselves from this realm, like nothing belongs to us. Nothing
matters anymore. It's like, oh my gosh,
nothing actually belongs to us. So when we can hold something loosely and pass through everything that comes our way, like everything that the Lord gives us, if we can just pass through that thing in love, you know, with mercy, with compassion, if we can pass through that thing, you know, that's the ultimate goal, right? The ultimate goal is that we can love well, that we can forgive well, you know, that we can build what he shows us, you know, and ultimately that's it. We're constantly just passing through these things, you know, and trying to do it with as much joy as we can, you know, and enjoying, like as long as we're enjoying like what is right in front of us right now, you know, like that's the ultimate goal, you know.
That's interesting you say that, because I was you know, there's books in the scriptures that, you know, where you know, the wisest man who ever lived, you know, and it's talking about, you know, I've done this, I've had everything, you know, I've had everything, I've done everything, I've known, my knowledge is unbelievable, you know, nobody else comes near this. And he says it really basically it comes down to, you know, finding the joy, the enjoyment in what you're doing, you know. It doesn't mean not having purpose, but it's finding the joy in there. So that's really, and it's sounding to me like I would think if I'm probably going to step away from this and go to and look up Psalm 23, and I'm going to read it through with your names in it, you know, just visualizing you, and then I'm going to do the same for myself, because that's what I'm hearing. I think it's kind of like this is how it is, you know. He leads me before he leads, you know. So just to my last question. Okay, fun fact time. I saw a photo recently. And I saw a photo recently on Facebook, but I'm just thinking, tell us something interesting about each other that is revealable. Okay, something interesting about each other that most people don't know. Something, an interest, something you've done that's like, I didn't know she did that. I didn't know he did that.
Okay. All right. This is a surprise question, so I'm going to think about it.
Okay, who wants to go first?
I haven't thought of anything.
All right, we're going to think about this. All right, something about one another.
Interesting.
You did a post recently, Vesna.
Yeah. Oh, about Rob. Yeah. So Robby, about the music. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Fun fact.
Yeah. So Robby used to be a DJ. So when I met him, or when I knew him, he was actually a DJ, and he was a rave DJ as well. He was actually really good at what he'd done. He was like, honestly, like would have like he would have gone far with what he'd done, you know, but it was something that he actually he decided to stop because it was part of his journey to stop. But he's going to take it up again, and he did start making music again, which is really beautiful, but it's got a very different tone to it. Like it's very meditative actually, and it's got some really nice sounds and layers to it. So I love it.
The DJ, new rebirth. That's what I'm looking forward to.
It's a rebirth.
Sorry. Yeah.
My turn.
My turn.
Don't reveal anything. I'm like, what's
Bess is like, I wonder what he's going to say about me. But I tell you what, look, I will go off what Bess was literally touching on just before. I know. Look, she just said she's a summer lover, you know, and she really is. And I know, like, no one knows this about her, but she's got such a some people do, but she's got such a heart for Thailand, right? And it's not just her, me too. And it feels like, honestly, Thailand is like our second home. You know, sometimes Ves says, "Oh no, it's my first home."
It's my home on earth.
And so, you know, one of the desires, or one of the things that Ves is like, she's got this love, this passion for Thailand. I mean, we both do, but she's got it probably even like just this next level up for me. And one day, you know, the Lord willing, we would love to be one of those. You know, when you get some of those expats living in some of these Southeast Asian countries, you know, and they might do like a couple months over in Southeast Asia and then a couple months back home in Australia, and we'd like to sort of be one of those those. You know, we might fly north for the winter, you know, every year for 3 months. I don't know, but that's just maybe one little thing I thought I'd share with Ves. I think she's a bird, and she likes to fly north. She really's got this desire to fly north for the winter.
And Robby and I always
to Thailand. And
Robby and I always joke about WOWLife Koh Phangan. Like Koh Phangan is an island in Thailand. So we always joke about that.
You never know.
You never know. Well, that's very cool. Good to say these things. That's good. So just as a closing question, and thank you so much for your time, and thanks. It's great to see the people watching, and I hope we can share this, because I think there's been some gems of wisdom, life experience and decisions ongoing, you know, that fluidity right through this. But closing, I'd love you to just invite you, either or both of you, to just give one piece of practical guidance to couples, or just guidance to couples of any belief system gained from your life experience. What would that be? Like, we don't want to exclude anybody.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. I would say, if I could share one piece of wisdom, that would be, I know you said to all religions and all faiths and whatnot, but I know even though it's a Bible verse, right, you know, it applies to all humanity, because I believe this is God speaking to all humanity. When he spoke in Matthew 6 verse 33, where he talks about put the kingdom of God first, and all of these things shall be added to you. You know, I believe that is the number one most important thing, and I believe that's what's gotten us through almost 20 years of marriage, and another however many we've got on this earth together. But I really believe that with all my heart is the number one piece of advice I could give, is that when you've got God as the centerpiece of your life, and you live for him and you follow him, and you know, you lay down everything, you know, for him, then what happens is that as you lay it down, he will bring it back into your life. He'll pick it, the desires of your heart. I mean, he puts every desire in our heart, because he's a good father and he wants to give them to us. This is the beautiful thing about our Father, you know, and this is the wisest piece of advice I can give, is that verse. Yeah.
And ultimately, like, what that comes down to, what that would translate to, you know, putting the kingdom first. Ultimately, what that translates to is, you know, will you lay your life down? You know, like in a relationship, like, will you lay your life down for the other? You know, that's what it is. You know, are you willing to give up your life for another person? You know, and that's like that's a big ask. You know, like that is a big ask. But you know, when you lay your life down again, when you lay your life down, you actually pick it up. You know, so that's where the fulfillment is. You know, it's laying your life down in order to see another person succeed, in order to see another person flourish and live out their fullest potential. You know, and when that's done, when that's reciprocated, you know, that's a beautiful thing. You know, but it has to be reciprocated, right? Otherwise, it's not so good. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. I think we've got some amazing words of wisdom. You know, I genuinely say that. And I've really, really enjoyed talking to you. It's cool to do it in a limited time, because we can kind of get to the bottom of a few things and get the essence of some things. And what I've heard here, what I've seen here, just to take us out now, is that I've seen these two individuals quite very different people, but actually just there's such a sameness now. There is that depth. I can see, there's all this enjoyment, this individuality, but there's a real depth to all the levels of your relationships. And I guess what I'd finish with is, who doesn't want depth in your relationships with anyone, including God?
Yeah.
Who
That's
doesn't?
right. That's right. And that's the mystical marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Depth.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, thank you so much, Robby and Vesna Petrov, and viewers, and that. It's been really lovely talking to you. Go and have an awesome day.
Liz, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Glad to see you.
Glad to see you. Love you. Bye.
Thank you.